So my name is Tessa Fridell, and this semester I interned with the Center for Sustainable Enterprise as the North Carolina Climate Justice intern. So a little bit about the Center for Sustainable Enterprise, or CSE. They're through UNC Kenan-Flagler's School of Business, and their mission statement is to drive responsible thought, leadership, and inspired action to accelerate progress in social and environmental sustainability through innovative and profitable business solutions. In this semester, I worked with Jeffrey Middlestat and Tracy Triggs Matthews, who are the executive and associate directors of CSE. And so kind of a breakdown of my role. I began the semester with researching climate justice issues. And because it's such a big kind of scope, I spent a lot of the first month just identifying climate justice issues, researching the history of environmental justice movement, which actually occurred here in North Carolina, or the start of the environmental justice movement was here in North Carolina, as well as North Carolina demographics and social vulnerabilities that related to kind of which communities felt the impacts of climate change most severely. And then I conducted some interviews with organizations such as Clean Air North Carolina to discuss potential initiatives and boundaries to kind of mitigate some climate change issues such as pollution in cities. And my final deliverable for the semester was to create an ArcGIS story map on urban heat islands and redlining, which is kind of where my scope narrowed towards the end of the semester. And then this slide kind of just includes some guiding questions and guiding principles that I kept in mind through all of my climate justice research. And so what I really learned was that you can't view like sustainability and climate change in an isolated kind of view. You have to really look about underlying demographics and vulnerabilities to see which communities are most impacted and where solutions are going to be most impactful. So the second question of how policy and business solutions can ensure that they're targeting the most vulnerable communities to mitigate climate change and stimulate lasting economic development was something that I kept in mind throughout the research progress. And then my final deliverable was an ArcGIS story map on urban heat islands, which I will show. Okay. Okay, so this was the story map I created on urban heat islands in North Carolina cities. And I included some information on the urban heat island effect, which is the idea that urban areas are going to have like higher temperatures due to the amount of impervious surfaces and lack of green space. And the part of the story map that I really wanted to highlight were some of the maps that I looked at and were able to use some of the mapping tools to show the relationship between redlining policies and historic inequalities and how they relate to urban heat islands. So I created this map using layers from University of Richmond's Mapping Inequality Project. And you're able to zoom in on each of the cities and see these redlining grids and basically see how those overlay with the current census tracts. And then later on, I created some layers on some relevant socioeconomic and climate metrics relating to the urban heat island effects, such as surface temperature anomalies, percent of impervious surfaces, and opportunity zones, which are low income areas. And so you could isolate each of these and look at them in relation to these redlining maps if you were to zoom in on a city. And so one of the biggest takeaways from this was just learning these cool tools to display information on ArcGIS. And then back to the presentation. So moving on to my key takeaways, definitely just a greater understanding of the complexities of climate justice and potential policy and business mitigation strategies. This is definitely an area that I wasn't so familiar with and definitely want to delve deeper into the future. Also professional development skills. I was definitely able to improve my interview skills and time management skills for such a kind of open-ended independent study project. And then finally, my biggest takeaway was just technical skills working with ArcGIS software. I had never used ArcGIS or anything, and I think it's a really cool way to display information and really effective for conveying ideas. And with that, I just want to say thank you to my mentors, Tracy and Jeff at CSE and Brian and Megan at EcoStudio for such a great semester. And like, it was a really rewarding experience. So thank you.